I first of all want to give you a brief rundown of what we're going to be looking at today. So on your screen, you should be seeing a few different arrows and some information. There's a lot of information here just because there's so many features in Whiteboard that we're going to be talking about. But I don't want you to get overwhelmed. I just want you to get acquainted with what we're going to be looking at today. And of course, if you come across any questions that you may have, please feel free to use that Q&A box. That Q&A box will allow us to be able to directly communicate with you and answer all of your questions throughout the presentation. So with that being said, let's take a look at what we have here. So first, in the upper corner here, you're going to notice my name. So let me go ahead and highlight that. Right here, you're going to see my username. This is going to be things like the Whiteboard session info and how you can share this with your students. It's very simple. You would just select it and then you get something like a QR code and a URL. This is great for student engagement, but we're not going to worry about that too much today. Just know that that's where it will be. And it will show up in this opposite corner where I'm pointing with the yellow arrow. There is a circle with a face icon. That is where you're going to sign in and sign out. So Ruben showed you how you can do single sign-on, and you can do the same thing for Whiteboard. So you can use Google Sign-On, Microsoft, and you can even use your own username and password as well to get started. Now this option is available to you to make it easier for you to get started during the day. I'm using Windows, which is allowing me to use my Windows single sign-on and get started. But now that I'm signed in, we're good to go. There's some other features that you'll be looking at within Whiteboard. In this upper corner here where I'm circling with the yellow, you're going to see a couple of different options. Those are going to be more of your navigation tools for minimizing or maximizing, even accessing some settings. We're not going to worry about that too much either. Now down at the bottom, you're going to see the main toolbar. The main toolbar has so many different tools and features that we're going to be looking at today. And I will go through a few of those. There are many different tools available to you, and they're very helpful. And I'll explain more in depth about what we'll be looking at. In this corner, you can also read that there is another type of toolbar, which we call the floating toolbar, and it's in this corner. So the two different things that I want to point out is that the main toolbar can be moved across your screen. So you can move it to the side, to the top, or even down at the bottom where I prefer it. But the floating toolbar can go wherever you want it. So if it's ever in your way, you can move it out. Don't worry, it's fully customizable. So let's get started. I know there's a lot, but really for the purposes of today's presentation, we're going to be simply focusing on the floating toolbar and the main toolbar. I want to make sure that you all feel comfortable. And the idea behind this is just to get a brief introduction to the tools so that you feel a little more confident when you start to use this type of software in your classrooms. So now that we're going to go into some of the tool features, I'm going to press this. So something that you might have noticed already is that I've already been using the floating toolbar quite a lot. And the way that I'm using it is I'm using my mouse to navigate. And so this is allowing me to use the mouse to draw arrows. It's allowing me to select different arrows, but it's also allowing me to present this to you. What you've also already noticed is that within my ViewBoard Whiteboard, you can have multiple different pages on your canvas. And as I showed you already, you can use the Move toolbar to move it wherever you want. But now here are two different features that I want us to just get used to briefly. And this is going to be especially helpful for your classrooms when you start to create lessons. And that's going to be the second icon here on the floating toolbar that I am pointing at with the yellow arrow. Right now, it has an image of a green chalkboard with a person instructing in the front. Basically, what that means is that I am in prepare mode. I'm allowed to go to all the different tools. I can move around. I see that upper toolbar that I talked about earlier for minimizing and maximizing the screen. But if I were to say select the tool, so if I am using my left click on my mouse, now it's going to put me into present mode. What you might notice is that entire upper bar portion that we saw earlier has now disappeared. And now we can focus directly on the content. So we see some teachers deciding to use this feature if they want their students to focus only on the presentation at hand. There are some other features that I will get to later as well, but it does minimize some of the usability in the sense that you won't be able to resize an image or resize a shape, but that's purposeful. That's so that when your students are going up to interact with the board, you don't have to worry about them accidentally editing your presentation that you worked a long time on. So that's a very helpful feature. And to get back to that prepare mode, all you have to do is select the square again. And now we're back in the mode. You can tell because that bar is up at the top again. Another thing that I want to talk about is the ability to paste from clipboard. So this is going to allow you to take any text or images from a web page that you're interested in and put that directly in simply by pressing copy on the image and then using this clipboard shape, and it's going to paste to the panel. Another thing that I want to point out are these arrows at the bottom. Here we have a left-facing and a right-facing arrow, and you may have already noticed I've been using those to advance my slides. So if I want to go back to the previous page, I just click that left arrow, and then to go forward, I press the right. I do want to make note on the main toolbar, you will notice down in this corner that there are more arrows. So one of my colleagues made a great mention about this. While there are two different arrows, these do completely different things. So, which I showed you right now with the left and right arrow to advance your slides, these arrows in this corner are undo and redo. So whatever it makes sense for you to understand that these are different features, that's great. I think my colleague calls these eyebrows. So if that is something that sticks out to you, whatever makes you have that cue to know that it's different, good to know. But don't worry, there are more things available too. So if you are doing more creation for your content, you're going to collect these new page right here, or you can go down to page management. By selecting page management, I can give you a preview of what we're going to be looking at today. And this is just easy for your editing to go back and forth wherever you need when you're making your lesson. And again, as we have the finches, you'll notice I like to put these into my presentation throughout because the ViewSonic finches, that is our mascot. And I just think it's super cute and helpful. And if it makes you understand the lesson a little bit more, that's great for me. So let's get a little bit further. And now we're going to talk about the main toolbar. So again, this section of the presentation is just to get you a little more familiarized with these different features. And then in the next portion, we're going to go into how to use them. So one very, very powerful tool of this software is this hand icon. Now this hand icon that I'm pointing to with the yellow arrow is what we call the infinite canvas. Within the My Viewboard ecosystem, we are able to use Whiteboard to have multiple different pieces on each slide. So I already showed you how you can do page management, and you can add new slides and you can navigate, but you can also have an infinite canvas on each of those slides. That means that you can keep multiple different pieces of information on one slide so that you can keep ideas grouped together. I'm going to go ahead and show you how that would work now. So again, we're going to be looking at where I'm pointing with this yellow arrow. It's the hand icon. I'm going to select it. So if you're using a viewboard in your classroom, it's as easy as just pressing with one finger onto the infinite canvas icon. Or if you're using a mouse or a trackpad, just click it. So something that just popped up right now is something that is another powerful tool with all of these main toolbar features is the ability to double click. So one click will allow you to select the icon, but selecting it again will provide you more options and details. So that is the same thing for Infinite Canvas. If I select it once, I can drag across and see different parts of the canvas. Now, if you're using a viewboard and using the touch capabilities, you can just use your finger and drag. If you're using a mouse, go ahead and click and now drag at the same time. So as you can see, I can get very far and I'm actually moving across the canvas. I can go back to what we were looking at earlier and it's all here. I can also zoom in. So again, because I'm using a mouse, I can use a scroll wheel. So I can scroll in and I can scroll out. If you're using a viewboard and you're using the touch features, it's as simple as just doing a pinch gesture. So either pinch out or pinch in. So let's say you're using the infinite canvas, you have really zoomed in, you're farther from where you wanted to start. This is where that double click comes back into handy. So again, looking at where I'm pointing with the yellow arrow, you can select the hand and then select it again, and now you have a new feature. So this is a very powerful tool. You have something here with a circle and an arrow, and this is a reset button. So there's two things you can do. You can either select the reset button, and it'll take you exactly where you had the page before, or let me go ahead and zoom in again. I can select the hand again, and there is a outline of a box. And now I can use that to navigate quickly to the portion that I want. Of course, I can always go back to that reset button and go back to where I started. So this is a very, very important tool for my viewboard and something that we feel is very unique and very fun about this whiteboarding software. You have multiple different areas that you can write on. You can have multiple students select different objects and move them all across the canvas, but you don't have to worry about getting lost because you always have that reset button. Now, another important feature is this dotted box with a blue arrow in it. This is our select tool. So notice that the infinite canvas and select tool are different. So you may be seeing the hand and thinking that's how you move an object, but remember that is for the infinite canvas. For select, you want to select this tool here. So you're going to click on it once. And now this is going to allow you to select different objects. So this is an image here that I've created. And I can select this. I can select this text box here, or even this cute finch over on this corner. Again, you can also have the ability to lasso objects together as well. So I'll show you a little bit more of that later on, but that is a good differentiator between the infinite canvas and select tool. We'll practice it so you remember, but that's just to get started. Of course, we have multiple different annotation tools. This is a whiteboard software after all. So by clicking it, I'm able to go to the pen. I've been using our laser pen, which is great for getting people's attention to certain places, but I don't have to erase it because it will disappear after each stroke. Let's look at the other pen options. This is going to be your base pen when you're using your viewboard or my viewboard software. This is going to allow you to have basic pen movements. And of course, you can change things like the thickness, the opacity, and of course, the most fun of all, the color. I have a very specific shade of purple that I like, and I really enjoy this feature because I can find that exact color and make it the color that I choose. So of course, whenever you find a color that you want to use, make sure you select it, and then you can begin writing. Now we have an eraser tool. Very important for those mistakes. You can select the eraser, begin erasing as normal, or again, you can use that double click function that's going to allow you to have multiple different options. This here is a lasso erase tool. To show you how that would work, I could just select a portion and it will delete that image. Another thing that I can do is I can erase all strokes or I can clear all. The difference here is that clear all strokes will just get rid of all the pen work or annotations that you've done on the page, where clear all will get rid of images that you haven't locked. More on that later. One other feature that I want to show you is down here. Let me click on the laser pen and demonstrate that one more time. You see a square. But notice here in my tool diagram, there's a different image for shapes and lines. Something to note when you're using the shapes and lines tool is that the shape that you're using will show up in the main toolbar. So earlier, before I did anything, it appeared just like this image. But once I used it and I selected a square, that's what it appeared. So if you feel like you're missing that tool, it's still there, but it might just be hidden behind a different type of shape that you selected previously. Same thing from the pen. You can change the thickness of the line, the color, the shape. there are many different tools within the shapeability that you can access. And then of course, using the text is very similar. You're going to select the text. I can select anywhere on the canvas and begin writing. So it depends if you prefer your own penmanship or if you feel like you have a little bit of messier penmanship. If you want to prepare your lessons ahead of time, maybe the text option is a good feature for you. Now, when I mentioned that Whiteboard was cross-platform compatible, something that is also important is the ability to have folders and cloud drives that connect to different cloud integrations. To show you how this works, I can click on the file manager icon and I would be able to either save as this folder, save if it's a previously saved canvas, create new, or even export to a PDF or PowerPoint, whatever it may be for your students to better have this information. But one thing in this magic box, which I'll show more later, is that we have things called cloud integrations. So for me, I use OneDrive, and here I'm able to access all of my files that are cloud-based. What this means is that I don't need to be using the same machine to be able to access files. So what that could mean for you is that you could work on your lesson on your laptop at home and go into your class the next day, sign in, and then all of your cloud drives will be ready to be accessed. So you can access all of your different files directly from the viewboard without having to plug in your computer. So if that's something that makes sense for you, it's a very simple process to get set up, but something that we highly recommend. And again, we have our Finch giving us a recommendation about the undo and redo. Those redo buttons and undo, which I think is very powerful, will only apply to the slide that you're on. So if you mess up only on the slide, when you want to undo, it won't undo progress on your different slides as well. So I think that's very powerful, especially for me. I make a lot of mistakes, so I want to make sure that I am not messing up any of the things that I do get right. So let's move on. I call this the main toolbar lesson enhancers. We're not going to go into depth about these today. I really just want to go over the basics and get you familiar and comfortable with what we're looking at. I briefly showed you the magic box and some of the abilities that you can use with cloud integrations. But I do want to show too this icon at the bottom of the toolbar, which has 4 blue squares. Now, this is unique to using my ViewBoard Whiteboard on Windows. This allows me to select an icon and go to my desktop. So I have this because I'm using a Windows Surface Pro. You might have this if you're using another Windows-enabled machine. This allows you to access more content. So here, you're going to see my desktop. And all I did was select that Windows icon. And now if I want to pull up a web page, so earlier we were talking about community, I can go through the page and show you some of the ViewSonic information. I can go to our dashboard and I can begin also marking up things by selecting this tool. So I can put bars around things that I find helpful or useful. I can add shapes. I can add notes using text as well. And then when I'm all done, I can take a screenshot. And that screenshot is going to allow me to be able to access all this information and have it post within the Canvas. So this is just a fun and helpful tool if you're using the Windows platform that I wanted to show. And here you go. It puts directly into the Canvas. So we're going to talk about these features later on in the series. So if this is something that you want to learn more about, we invite you to join us again later on. We'll go through each of these and how you can use them within your lessons and your classrooms. But let's go ahead and talk about Magic Box a little bit more. I do believe that we have another poll question that will be being sent to you all right now. I believe I misplaced it. There we go. So as that poll is coming up for you, I'm going to briefly show you some more tools in the Magic Box. So if you joined us earlier on in the summer webinar, you may have already been in our entire webinar directly about Magic Box. But if you're new, I will go ahead and show you a brief overview of what that looks like. So again, I'm going to click on the Magic Box using my mouse, and I want to give you an overview of what this will look like. Again, we'll have a webinar dedicated to Magic Box because there are so many powerful tools directly in here that are going to be helpful for you. So we already talked about file management and the cloud drive, so I won't spend any more time on that. But you're going to notice a few other tools. So we have a yellow sticky note, so you can add sticky notes to the canvas. We have math and science tools. So if you're using Windows, you have many different options. If you're using it on your view board, you may notice that you have the dice, a ruler. There are other tools available to you as well. But right now, you may be missing something like a compass. But what I really like is that these tools are available. You have the ruler that will be able to be added onto the canvas. So these are very helpful. You have a surface camera. So this is my document camera icon here. And this would actually allow me to put any real world documents and show my class if I wanted to use my webcam. So if you're more comfortable using a physical piece of paper to grade homework in front of the students, you can place that paper under the camera and it will appear on the view board. So that's very helpful as well. Some unique features about Magic Box as well is we have integrations with YouTube. So you can find and search for educational YouTube videos to share with your class. And the great thing is that they'll have no ads. So you can have a lesson, you can go through the video without having to wait for that minute, 30 seconds, whatever it may be to get to the video. We also have image search. So I was looking at how to increase my fall vibes within my virtual classroom today. So I was looking up pumpkin garland. And there as you can see, there are multiple different features here and different images that I can add. It's very fun, adds a little bit more color to your presentations and your work lessons as well. Now, these icons at the end are more for student engagement, and there will be more on that later. That is a little more advanced, so we don't need to worry about that today. But for your information, we have the ability to have students share files directly to the view board using something called Throw. So that is that little paper airplane icon. And then we have things like pop quiz, and we also have polls. So these are just great lesson enhancers, but also good for preparation and understanding your students' assessments